Good evening, everyone. My name is Lloyd Thies, and I have the privilege of being the current president of the Pittsford Chamber of Commerce. And on the behalf of the Chamber, we welcome you all and thank you for coming. I just want to say a few thank yous before we get started, and thank the Chamber's Government Relations Committee, consisting of Karen McCready, Michael Mills, Kevin O'Grady, and Matthew O'Connor, who organized this and brought us all together. So tonight, I'd first like to introduce our candidates to the Pittsford board. So we'll start with Bill Smith, and he's our current incumbent, Kate Mutzinger, and Anthony Daniele. And on my right, we have Kendra Evans, Kathy Kozakar, and John Walsh. I'm very excited about tonight. For me, I both work and live in the town of Pittsford, and I'm not alone when I say I love this community, and I know you all do too. Pittsford is 30,000 residents strong and have over 300 businesses strong as well, employing over 15,000 people in our town. So I know we all look forward to hearing from our candidates and their perspectives on maintaining and sustaining a well-balanced community well into 2020. So tonight's forum will be videotaped, and we thank Patrick Kojar for that. And he'll send us the tape, and it will be posted on the Chamber's website. So we ask that no other videos be taken. And we also ask that you please turn off your phones. I also would like to introduce our two sign language interpreters, Christine Avila-Smith and Curtis Borst. We thank both Christine and Curtis. And tonight's moderator is Liz Konar, who needs little introduction, and she was the president of the principal here. So before we get started, I ask that we all stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, a nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I have to put this stationary because I cannot hold the card and hold, I read too many tasks. So I'm good. Okay. So we have a coin toss, and it will determine who goes first, which side goes first for the opening remarks. So it's a quarter, so it's easy to read. And we'll ask Kendra to call heads or tails. And from that point, we will go back and forth, and I will depend on each table to then decide who speaks next when it's their turn. So good evening, and thank you so much for such a warm welcome. I did bring my detention slips with me, but I'll just keep them in my purse. I have a good feeling about tonight. And again, if you would be so kind as to put your phone on vibrate or on silent, the cacophony of music and sounds could just be a little bit distracting. And thank you for joining us this evening. Your presence here, it validates a commitment for our continual growth so that we can impact an even better Pittsford beginning tonight and for the days ahead. And thank you so much to the Chamber of Commerce for sponsorship. Each candidate will have between, I believe it's each candidate 2 to 3 minutes for an opening statement, and then each candidate will have up to 1 minute.
I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt, especially my principal, but I think it's 1 minute intro.
Is 1 minute
Yes.
intro?
Yes.
I take it all back.
I'm sorry.
It's 1 minute intro, and my understanding for the closing is it's 3 minutes
Each team.
to do however you want to. There's an issue. Thank you. To do however you want to. And 1 minute to answer all of these questions I have up here, and there will be no time for rebuttal. All questions that have been submitted in writing were reviewed, and they have been, most of them have been selected, and, well, they really all have been selected. What I do is I put them into what I would call buckets, and so where you may not hear your question exactly, because I'm not reading your question, the flavor, the intent, the purpose of your question should be answered. And if for some reason it is not, then the candidates will be glad to meet with you outside of the auditorium after we finish tonight. We will be finishing the question and answer about 8:50, and then at that time, the 3 minutes, closing statements, and then we will move outside. All right, a couple of ground rules. Respectful behavior. We are all here for the same reason. We are proud, very proud of Pittsford. Many of us have lived here decades, raised families here, totally committed to Pittsford. And we want to see Pittsford continue to evolve into its best character. Secondly, patience is a virtue. Third, please keep thoughts to yourself. Please refrain from shouting out with a comment. Whether it's appropriate or not, please refrain, because you will have an opportunity to meet with all the candidates afterwards, and ample opportunities in the days to follow. Let's get going. I have here questions that are just for the incumbent town supervisor and for Kendra. And then I have questions for everybody, but I will start with a question that is designated for...
Excuse me, do we have opening statements?
Oh, I'm so sorry, intros. I'm so sorry, I'm so anxious. All right, intro.
Thank you. I'm Bill Smith, and I am standing for re-election as town supervisor to keep Pittsford one of the best places to live in New York. And if anybody thinks that means, oh, things are so great, we can just coast and don't have to do it very much, that is the precise opposite of reality. Keeping Pittsford the best place to live demands continual improvement on all fronts. You see that continual improvement all around you. You see it in our renovated and expanded community center. You see it in our new athletic fields, our new parks, our new playgrounds. You see it in our new East Avenue sidewalk, on the dog park we opened the other day, on the Canal Side Nature Park and Preserve that goes online next spring. You see it in our environmental initiatives, with Pittsford being recognized by the state as a clean energy community in 2017, and the grants we've obtained for the purpose of environmental initiatives. You see it in the tax cut we delivered last year. You see it in our AAA credit rating that benefits everyone. The work continues, and I need the capability and experience of Anthony and Kate to carry it on. With it, with your support, together, we will continue on the path of continual improvement for our residents.
Anthony and I talk with our hands, so I'm going to put it back. Good evening, my name is Kate Monsinger, and I'm currently serving on the town board with Supervisor Smith. I'm running for my second term. First, let me begin by saying what a privilege it has been to serve you. Public service is a true honor, and I feel very lucky every day to have this opportunity. I'm a married mom of 2 school-age kids that are in Pittsford schools. In addition to serving on the town board, I work for Senator Joe Robach as his chief of staff. Before being elected to town board, I served as the town's communications director, where I had an opportunity to work with many Pittsford groups, including the chamber. I have been very proud to work alongside Bill to deliver some important initiatives to the town, including renovating the rec center, adding sidewalks, increased sustainability measures, a new dog park, lowering taxes in the last budget, just to name a few things. And my roots in Pittsford are very deep. I graduated from Sutherland High School, and my high school principal is even the moderator tonight. I'm still here after 20 years for one main reason, and it is I simply love this town. I care about it, and I care about its future. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Danielli, and I'd like to thank the chamber, the audience, and my colleagues here up on stage. I'll start with Experience Matters. I've grown up in Pittsford as an Eagle Scout doing community service projects, playing baseball in Pittsford Little League, attending Barker Road Elementary School and Pittsford Sutherland High School, where I met my wonderful wife, Erin, and my children go to school. My experience growing up in Pittsford matters. It matters to making a better representative on the town board. I've also met thousands of residents in my family businesses, restaurants, managing millions of dollars and hundreds of employees. Similarly, the town of Pittsford is responsible for millions of taxpayer dollars and manages hundreds of employees. My experience in business makes me uniquely qualified to manage these taxpayer assets. And leadership matters. While Pittsford's representative in the Monroe County Legislature, I save the taxpayers of Monroe County millions of dollars through restructuring projects, restructuring debt, and working across political party lines to do the right thing. I was elected as president of the legislature unanimously by both sides in a very partisan environment, the first and only president ever elected unanimously. I love this town, and I'm committed to supporting our schools and keeping Pittsford the same wonderful place we all adore. Thank you.
Hi neighbors, I'm Kendra Evans and I want to serve as the next town supervisor because I believe with new leadership we can be even stronger than we are today. I want to thank everybody from the chamber and Liz for bringing us together, and I really want to thank all of you for being engaged, for being here tonight, and for being voters. It's so very important. You're going to hear the other candidates on stage talk about their decades of collective experience as politicians. Well, John, Kathy, and I, we have a different story to tell. We're not experienced bureaucrats. What we are your neighbors who are leaders in our individual fields, and we want to listen and serve your needs. As a teacher and program manager and small business owner, I have plenty of experience with budget, strategic planning, personnel and project management, and of course, customer service. I have 3 children in the Pittsford Public Schools, and I volunteer extensively here. Like you, I love Pittsford. You can count on me to protect all the things that make Pittsford great while working to create a vibrant, strong future. What I don't have is a history in the local political machine. I've had to work hard, just like you, for everything I have in life, and with your support, I will work for you every single day. Thank you.
Hi, my name is John Walsh, and I want to serve as your representative on our town board. I'm an engineer and operations manager for a local small business. I'm not the type that makes a decision and leaves it to someone else to figure out the implementation. I go to where the work gets done to understand the systems and develop solutions. As we are nearing completion of our major plan initiatives like our comprehensive plan and active transportation plan, what we'll need in the coming years is leaders who are willing to put in the work to translate those plans into action. We need to elect leaders who represent the values that we prioritize in those plans. Those include preserving our community's historic character, improving mobility through our town, and helping our residents live more healthy lives. As I answer the questions tonight, you're going to see me intentionally approaching them through an environmental lens, and I do that because environmental solutions also lead to social and economic benefits. A big part of what drew me to Pittsford was the opportunity to live in an area where you can feel the agricultural roots of our town and yet be just a 20-minute bike ride from our village. Our family lives down East Street in what used to be a dairy farm. We're doing our part to preserve our little piece of Pittsford's agricultural history, planting trees, growing a bit of food, putting up our solar panels, but that work only goes so far when we're acting as individuals. And we have a lot of opportunities here in Pittsford to collectively build a more resilient and sustainable future, and that's why I'm running for town board, to expand the conversation of what's possible in local government and do my part to build a more socially, economically, and environmentally healthy community.
Hi everyone, my name is Kathy Kashikar and I'm running for a seat on our town board. I'm a longtime resident, wife, and mom to 2 little kids. I'm a corporate lawyer and I've worked in business for 20 years and believe it or not, I'm still nervous tonight. I'm practical, I show up, and I do the work. I'm a solid negotiator and I'm comfortable with disagreement. I've seen that respectful disagreement often leads to better outcomes. I'm inspired to serve because of the example of my dad, a U.S. Marine, and my experience as an intern in Louise Slaughter's office. I've seen that serving with integrity and an open mind will make people's lives better. I love Pittsford, just like everyone up here and everyone in the audience, and I don't want to change Pittsford. I do want to change how we make our decisions. I spent this summer knocking on doors and meeting neighbors, and I can tell you that we have smart, accomplished people here in town. Our people are our biggest and most unique asset. And they will tell you, many of them told me, that they do not feel that they're included in our decision-making processes. And that asset, our biggest asset, is underutilized. I'm committed to bringing our residents into the conversation and representing all of us. Thank you.
Good to go. Thank you. This is a question for the supervisor position only. What traits, personal and professional experience do you have that make you uniquely qualified for the position?
Well, I think what makes me most excited about this position is what is the definition of what the supervisor does. The supervisor's job is not just to be the CEO of the town, but to set the course and the vision for our community. And so, to be qualified for this, you need to believe that I am the person that shares your values and represents our shared, inclusive, optimistic vision for our town. As supervisor, I am incredibly excited to work with our town staff. We have a finance director, we have 1 million department heads, we have lots of talented people that keep our town running. And with my skill sets and their expertise, I guarantee you we will ensure continuity of service, we'll maintain our AAA credit rating, and most importantly, I'm going to listen to you and I'm going to bring you into the process. My experience working with students with special needs, with job seekers who are on the autism spectrum, and the employers who are about to hire them has given me a lot of experience as a bridge of bringing people together who don't seem like likely allies, but ultimately helping them see what the benefit is. As your supervisor, you can guarantee that I will use these skills to listen to you, to bring your voice in. I have a lot of different opportunities that I'll talk about later for how that's going to work, and I see Matt telling me to stop, so I'll stop right there. Thanks.
Thank you. I think the traits that qualify me best to continue in my role as a town supervisor, first and foremost, the demonstrable results I have provided for all of you during my tenure in that position. I mentioned some of those things in my opening statement, and I think you're very familiar with the way that we try to do things in such a manner as to reflect the interests and intentions of our residents. I first got involved in town government over 20 years ago. It was a part-time position. It became a part-time position when I ran for town council. But as a supporter of the Green Print Plan, I felt very strongly that it is wrong to pave over communities, that the proposal that was put forward by my predecessor, Supervisor Carpenter, was an inspired idea and was the right thing to preserve 2/3 of our remaining farmland. I ran for the town board promising to support that, and I won. The next year, we got the Green Print passed. It benefits us to this day. Beyond that, I have 30 years experience as a corporate and securities lawyer. It helps in a tremendous number of ways, not least of which is understanding the complex interaction of federal, state, and local laws that apply to so many, maybe most, of all the decisions that we have to make in town government.
Thank you. Our next question is to be addressed by both teams. What are the town's most important infrastructure needs? And we'll start with your team.
Hi again. The town's most important infrastructure needs, I think, is that the long, cold winters have had, do some damage to our roads. So I think that one of the most important things that we can do as a town is, try to improve the roads by trying to secure more state funding for the roads. We have a close working relationship with the Department of Transportation at the state and also at the county. But I think that the roads are one of the most important infrastructures.
Ever since I was a child in Pittsford, using the canal trail, the trails that were around where I grew up near Lock 32, the sidewalks that have been expanded throughout town, one of the things I've noticed is that the desire of the people of Pittsford to be outside, to use our trails, to spend time running, riding their bike, walking their dog, it seems to have increased. There's more of a passion in the community for that. And I think Pittsford's done a great job growing that infrastructure, but I would also agree that that is an area that we can certainly continue to work on, whether it's safe crosswalks, expanding the sidewalks, connecting the trails, and really making Pittsford an even more premier trail town than it is today.
Roads and walkability. One of the most important assets that we have already is an excellent trail system. When you look at our trail system and our sidewalk system, what you can see is that we have the opportunity to make some fairly modest connections that greatly extend the opportunity of people to be able to get around town by foot and by bicycle. The town and the village have gotten together for a joint plan called the Active Transportation Plan to take a comprehensive look at how we can maximize the effect of this. It looks at the way we can protect pedestrians at pedestrian crossings, one of my biggest worries. The other issue has to do with roads, both in residential neighborhoods and the main state roads that run through the town. My last budget provided substantially increased funding for neighborhood road repaving. My budget that I'll announce to the town board next week maintains that. As far as state roads go, it requires a lot of time and patience and knowing the players in the State Department of Transportation to get them to move off the dime. And I'm very pleased to say that in a meeting with them just 3 weeks ago, Mayor Corby and I sat down with the regional director of the state DOT, who finally agreed to our requests for improved pedestrian crossing safety with the flashing lights and the complete resurfacing of East Avenue from St. John Fisher all the way down into the village. There's more, but I'm out of time.
So what I've been talking a lot about with neighbors over the course of this year is how we can create an infrastructure that encourages neighbors to get outside, connect with each other, and connect with the community. So a lot of things go into that, looking at how we can be creating complete streets, roadways that are safe and accessible for all users, not just cars, safe for pedestrians, bicyclists, motorists, and public transit users. Looking at neighborhood connectivity with our trails and sidewalks, I do take a little bit of issue classifying our trails and sidewalk system as a system when we have so many disconnections and difficult to navigate areas. And looking at pocket parks, small neighborhood green spaces and common areas where neighbors can come outside and connect with each other right there where they live. And I will close it there.
So I agree with our concerns about crosswalks and trails, but I would like to focus on the infrastructure by which we operate our town. We need to join the world that the rest of our residents live in and embrace technology and transparency. We need to acknowledge that lowering the cost for the services that we provide does not necessarily mean doing less. We have amazing employees here in Pittsford, and they do a lot of really hard work maintaining our roads and infrastructure, but they could do a lot more if we gave them the right tools. We could provide better value to our residents if information were easily available, clear, and direct. As I knocked doors all summer, the biggest complaint, aside from taxes, that people shared with me was that they had frustration with their roads and flooded culverts, not in the quality of the work that we do, but in their inability to get real solid information about schedules and when things would happen. Next year or within 2 years is not a great answer, and I'm sure our employees do not enjoy that conversation. We know that projects take time, but we can't put the onus on our residents to track those projects. We need to focus on customer service. We need a better website. We need to make information publicly available. We need to post plans on our website. We need to put maintenance schedules online. There are many, many different tools available to us that are not complex and not expensive. Thank you.
So everyone I've talked to agrees that strong communities invest in infrastructure. Physical infrastructure, social infrastructure, and of course IT infrastructure. The current leadership continues to look to the past, committing to doing what we've always done. Whereas when I'm listening to residents, we need to adapt. We need to implement new ideas to meet our ever-evolving needs. In terms of physical infrastructure, we've maintained the status quo with the same road repair systems. We still have our drainage issues. We're still using the same fossil fuel-powered fleet for our town cars and vehicles. In terms of social infrastructure, residents ask me, why are we still separating generations instead of bringing everyone together? Why do we lack programming that brings all of those college students from our local Nazareth and St. John Fisher, but also MCC, RIT, and the U of R? And lastly, in terms of IT infrastructure, people are asking me, why are we still recording town meetings with a device that requires a tape instead of live streaming and having interactive methods? Why do we still have to go to town hall to do a dog license? And lastly, why is it so difficult to use our website to learn about community gardens and other such things? It's time we implement practices and technology that does less talking to you and more talking with you. Government works best when it's interactive. Thank you.
Next question, and this is for everybody. By making our community inclusive, can you elaborate on how you attract young families of all races, not just particular race, i.e. African American, also Asian American, etc.? One board member mentioned 88% white and 2% black demographic representation. How do you present for the other 10% of the races? Let's start with you.
So I think we've been having a really important conversation in our town that I'm not sure we've had before. And I think it's worth continuing that conversation. We should allow it to continue and listen to each other. The conversation around housing and development has gotten out of hand. And we need to look to our town leaders to bring our issues back to a constructive place by listening to the concerns of all the residents and identifying what we agree on and building on it. And I have not seen that yet with our current incumbents. I have that skill. I've been negotiating commercial contracts for 20 years. The work is about building relationships and understanding the different perspectives of the people you're working with. And you have to make an effort to do that. You have to put yourself in their shoes and figure out what they're trying to get at, what they need. And that is exactly what we need to do. We need to engage with all of the people who showed up to that public meeting and couldn't get into the room. And we need to continue the conversation that we started in good faith. Thank you.
So as a teacher and a mother of three, we chose Pittsford for many reasons, not least of which were Pittsford's strong public schools. Like you, we love Pittsford, and we want everybody to have the opportunities that are afforded to us and to our three kids. The housing discussion, the inclusivity discussion, it really isn't about affordability as much as it is about access. And I think that's where I want to take the conversation, is it's about access. It's about caring for our seniors, our single parents, our disabled residents, people who work in the town but can't necessarily afford to live here. It's about all of us, and all of us together are how we're going to solve it. Similar to Kathy, I want to say that the conversations have gotten very divisive, and that has no place in our community. We've knocked so many doors. I've been to over 2,000 doors this summer. I've had countless personal meetings with people, and truthfully, people want to come together. What we need more town halls. We need more real conversations that bring people together around hard issues, to be respectful, to hear each other, because we're a community of very talented people, and diversity of thought and inclusion is what makes a community strong, and that's what I would work towards.
And I would actually continue that conversation by circling back to the last question. A big part of this is creating a community that's welcoming to everybody, whether it's young families or whoever's coming from out of town, people who may have lived here in the past and might want to come back. And a big part of that is feeling welcome in your neighborhoods. And when I was talking about infrastructure, trails, sidewalks, a big part of that is, or a big part of why I'm talking about that is because the connections you're making with your neighbors are much more meaningful when you're passing on that sidewalk or on that trail rather than that wave through the car windshield. Looking at how we can be connecting neighbors and giving them greater access to the decision making in town and making them feel like they are part of that decision making and not just being talked to. And that happens in a number of different ways, but it starts by going out to the community and not waiting for the community to come to you.
Yeah, I will start with the fact that in my heart, I believe we are a loving and welcoming community. I've experienced that my entire life in this community. I've lived in several different neighborhoods in this town, and those neighborhoods were diverse neighborhoods. Everybody can have their definition of diversity. Obviously, Pittsford, is labeled as the town where the rich live. But I think we all know in this room that that is just not true. We do have diversity of housing stock and their values, and we have a diversity of workforce. I know plumbers, I know teachers, I know laborers who live in Pittsford. Not everybody is a lawyer or a doctor. And I, to be honest, resent the fact that this topic comes up and is used on occasion for political gain. I think it's a healthy conversation to have, and certainly it's not something to be ignored. But I do believe it is something that can be done in a more respectful fashion. And I think we need to keep in mind that we are a loving community and not attack each other over these issues.
Thank you, Anthony. I think that was a great answer, and I agree with him. I think Pittsford has always been a very loving and welcoming community, and I think it's our duty as the town government to continue to support the best quality of life for our residents and the best services and amenity and responsiveness to them, and we should do it for everyone. And Pittsford, and just to reiterate what Anthony says, Pittsford has always been a place of very loving, dedicated people. I think we still are, and I think we will continue to be.
Thank you. At the risk of shattering some undoubtedly cherished stereotypes, you need to know that 26% of all the housing in the town of Pittsford is valued at less than $199,000. And what that means is, for an example, if a person buys a house for $180,000, figure a 10% down payment, add in all the costs, the taxes, all the rest, the monthly payment would be a little over $1,500 a month. That's a little over $18,000 a year. By any of the standard measures of what multiple or what fraction of your gross income should go to your housing, that house is easily affordable by anyone within the range that was put forward by an amendment that was suggested to our comprehensive plan at our last town board meeting. There is affordable housing in Pittsford. We are not one of the exclusive enclaves of the East Coast like Greenwich, Connecticut, or Westchester County, where at any moment you are a 2-hour commute away from anything reasonably affordable. There is affordable housing right here in Pittsford.
This question will go to the candidates for our town supervisor position. What will you do in your first 100 days in office?
Thank you. I think it's very clear. We have just adopted our comprehensive plan. So one of the first things that we need to do will be to take a look at our zoning laws, because there are changes to the zoning laws suggested in the comprehensive plan. For example, one of the things that we are trying to, among the things that we are trying to do, and the comprehensive plan committee and the members of the public who weighed in over the 5-year period that we were open and engaging with the public in this process, they want to see us implement steps to do what we can to preserve more green space in the town. The comprehensive plan also calls for cluster zoning so that we can get greater density of houses in certain area. That serves 2 purposes. It makes it possible for houses to be built at somewhat less cost and therefore sold at somewhat less cost. And when you cluster them, you preserve the open countryside. That's just one example. There are lots of things coming out of that plan that will affect the zoning laws. The other thing is, one of our key environmental initiatives has been community choice aggregation, whose purpose is to get for our residents electricity at a rate cheaper than RG&E from 100% sustainable sources. We're working together with the towns of Brighton and Arundequoit, and the rollout for this project is imminent. That's going to be a big deal in the first 100 days of next year.
Zoning updates, absolutely. Community choice aggregation, that was started 2 years ago, so I hope to move that along a little faster in my first term. The very first thing that I would like to do is thank the hardworking staff. The department has the entire town team that keep our community running smoothly. These are the people that deliver the services that make this such a wonderful place to live. There's rumors going around that I intend to cut, rumors to scare and divide our community. So I just want to make it clear that the only thing I intend to cut is the supervisor's salary. The Pittsford supervisor is the highest paid supervisor in Monroe County, even though we don't have our own police force to manage. The Pittsford supervisor makes more than our county executive, and the Pittsford supervisor makes more than numerous governors. So I will cut the salary up front by 10%, by bringing it to the board, of course, because they approve all of the decisions. And I want to turn them into community enrichment grants. Now, that's just a start. I don't know the exact salary, and I wouldn't pretend to. I think that's something where the community decide. So I will put forth what that should be by bringing people together into the conversation. So in essence, in my first 100 days, my priority is to take care of the people, making sure our town employees have what they need to safely and efficiently get their work done, and creating opportunities for residents to get involved in our decision-making processes.
Back to full team. Question: how do you plan to improve pedestrian or bicycle access to the Shotland YMCA?
Do we start?
I believe
So pedestrian safety and access is, in my opinion, the biggest, or certainly one of the biggest issues faced in our town, and this intersection in particular is probably the most important one. So as we look at moving the YMCA moving from an area that was surrounded by neighborhoods to what is a very isolated area, we need to look at how we can now connect neighbors who don't have access to vehicles or who just simply don't want to drive a car to go just a couple of miles. The new YMCA is so very close to the canal path, but it feels very far and very dangerous when you try to walk that connection. You're going across a very narrow bridge and have cars speeding right by you. So what can we do? The active transportation plan and the community members who've been working on that for years are looking at that issue. That is something that ideally we would have had a solution before this development or this building was developed, but here we are now. So step one is making that connection to the canal path. Step two is making the other connections. We have sidewalks that start and end not connecting anything. We've gone and talked to some of the neighbors in those neighborhoods right around there who are so close, and yet they have to jump in their car to get over 100 yards or so. So making those short little connections is an important priority, and working with the state, which we've heard a lot of hand-wringing in recent meetings about how we have difficulty getting cooperation from the state DOT. That's going to be very important on those state roads. So figuring out how we can better work with the state and align our interests to meet the needs of our residents.
I absolutely agree that the building has been built. They had the grand opening. It's gorgeous. The rave reviews, but I don't understand why this question wasn't asked before it was built. The sidewalks don't quite go there. The canal path, I'll spare you repeating that. But each new development that we build south of that intersection adds traffic right through that corridor every morning and every evening, and the building itself adds a ton of traffic. So this is a huge priority. People, we need to start looking at transportation as a holistic thing. It can't be just about cars. I think we assumed going into it that it would be just cars, and we did. We looked at a traffic study that the builders did. I think the town should have done its own traffic study, and I think that they should have been in the neighborhoods across from the place talking to them, because when I was knocking on their doors this summer, they were very concerned about the traffic, not with just walking there, but also driving around that intersection. So I do think this is a very serious question, and we need sidewalks, we need the trail connected, and we need some attention on that.
So I agree with Kathy and John, and I won't reiterate a bunch of what they just said. I'll start by saying the active transportation plan needs to be finished. If it's going to have any teeth, it needs to be adopted, and it's unclear why it has taken so long. We do a lot of thinking and talking and planning and not enough doing, and this has put us as government leaders in a position of being reactive instead of proactive. In terms of the YMCA, I'm a member, our kids are members, our families are members, we love it. What a tremendous asset to our community. But it was designed with people who drive cars in mind. There's 675 spaces. I'm glad that the cars can go there, but the sidewalk literally goes nowhere. The canal path that my children could bike from our home to, it's not safely accessible. There are no safe pedestrian or bike pathways to this place that is supposed to be bringing community together and promoting a healthy lifestyle. That's what YMCAs are known for. It's really time that we can count on our leaders to stand up for what we need. And by we, I don't mean just one segment of us, like the people who drive cars. I mean those of us who are pedestrians, those of us who need RTS, everyone. It's time that we start being proactive, not reactive. Thank you.
I'm going to start, and then I'm going to squeeze it over to Bill. But one of the things that we worry most about is the safety of our pedestrian crossings, especially as the mom of two increasingly independent kids who want to walk to Starbucks or the Y. I worry about that stuff all the time, and I know Bill does too. Some of the problems that we have is when we want to put a sidewalk in, if the town does not own the road, we can't run and just put a sidewalk in. But there are plans to put sidewalks in the active transportation plan for the YMCA, and now I'm going to pass it to Bill and let him just tell you the streets and the specifics.
Thank you. Listening to the opposition's answer to that question, especially Mr. Walsh's, made me appreciate all the more that imitation really is the sincerest form of flattery. He provided a very lucid summary of the provisions that are already in the draft active transportation plan that is available on, it's a joint plan with the village, that is available on the websites of both the village and the town. For the immediate area around the YMCA, here's what the plan is so far. This will be subject to another round of public scrutiny. A sidewalk down Jefferson Road to Clover from where the sidewalk ends at the village line. A sidewalk down Toby Road from the Cricket Hill area all the way down to Clover. A sidewalk, which was first, the possibility of which was first brought to my attention about 2 years ago by the engineers for the YMCA project, saying, you know what? You can build a sidewalk on the west side of Clover connecting the Y to the canal park. Why is that one so important? It's so important because think of the sidewalk down Jefferson. The sidewalk part is the easy part once you figure out the financing. But at that intersection of Jefferson and Clover, is that a sidewalk to the Y or is it a sidewalk to nowhere? Connecting to the canal path means that people have a safe way of getting across Clover Street and a continuous path from the village to the Y. We have incorporated this into a concept called the West Pittsford Pedestrian Area. And by bundling these things together, Mayor Corby and I both believe that we have a much better chance of being able to get state grant funding for the whole package, which means, if we get it, that it can all be done at once instead of having to do it one sidewalk at a time.
Not to be confrontational, but it's very easy to criticize when you don't understand exactly how the system works. I don't disagree with the comments that John made. It would have been better if these sidewalks and these connections were done prior to the opening of the YMCA. I think we can all agree on that. Unfortunately, you are dealing with state roads, state permits, state funding. In a perfect world, on Fantasyland, we would just go out there and lay down sidewalks and make it all happen real quick. The reality is it just doesn't work like that. It takes months and months of work, and in many cases, and I've dealt with this as a county legislator, the state DOT doesn't want to hear about it until they see YMCA because they look at it the other way and say, I'm not going to let you put a sidewalk to nowhere before the YMCA is there because it's nowhere. And again, it doesn't always make sense, and I'll be the first to admit that, but there is a process, and if you followed the approvals for this YMCA, you would know that this plan is already in place and these connections will happen. Thank you.
We will go back to a question for the town supervisor position only. What will you do to reduce, eliminate storefronts that are empty in the village, working with and alongside the village trustees? So we will start with you.
Yes, as you all know, any processes for citing new businesses in the village are under the exclusive jurisdiction of the village government. People within the village have a very clear idea and understanding they have their own government that has jurisdiction over these things. Outside the village, not so much. So to a large extent, it's going to be up to the village government. But what can we do? We can do an awful lot. Among the things we can do are to make sure that we maintain those aspects of our community that are attractive to people who do business. What's the most important thing for a person who's doing business, especially at the retail level? It's opening a business in a location where there are customers who are willing to pay for your services and able to do that. So I think that's one thing that's very important. Another thing that we can do is to give such assistance to the village as it may request. This is a sensitive thing. Nobody in the village government wants to hear from somebody from the town and say, oh, we're gonna help you. They are an independent government. But what we can do is to share ideas as we have. The village mayor and I work very closely together on all kinds of projects, and this is one. And he and I have talked about the streamlining application process that we have implemented in the town that's made it so much easier for new businesses to locate inside the town. One final thing, do not be blaming the village overly for the empty storefronts that you see. There is a moratorium on these applications in the village. There has been for well over a year, and that moratorium was put into place so that the village could proceed with its own comprehensive planning process in an orderly way. That moratorium is about to end, and you will see a lot of new applications in the village for space that's currently vacant.
So as a village homeowner, I am committed to bringing a village voice to town decision making. I know from personal experience and from my neighbors that in past projects, big projects like the library and the community center, that village neighbors, they've told me that they felt both left out and railroaded by the town. That's not something that should continue. The number one priority needs to be having a closer, stronger relationship with our village government and all of the residents there. I'm very grateful to our village leadership for their unwavering commitment to historic preservation and adaptive reuse. I think that's critical. It makes it a wonderful place to live. I think all of us, whether you're a town resident or a village resident, we highlight the village on every publication. When we talk about Pittsford, we talk about our schools and we talk about our village, and it's up to us to work together, not to take away autonomy, but to partner, a true partnership where we're all working together. One of the things that really strikes me about those empty storefronts, they're not all because of a moratorium. If we knew the details of the moratorium and shared those, you'd see that it doesn't apply to everyone. And as I walk the sidewalks with my children and my family, I've got to wonder what kind of message it sends when the other candidates on stage have put their yard signs in front of the empty storefronts. Is that truly helping? I'm not sure.
Question for everybody. Some candidates have openly criticized single-family zoning in Pittsford and are looking to encourage more affordable multifamily projects. And how do you feel about this topic? We'll start with you.
Well, I haven't criticized single-family zoning, but what I would say is that single-family zoning is not the answer on its own, and that we need to be encouraging a mix of housing. So single-family homes, townhomes, apartments, patio homes, all sorts of housing, because when we are building uniform neighborhoods, we get uniform neighbors, and what we want to build a strong social fabric in our community is different people coming together and connecting with each other. And so we want, in an ideal world, to be updating our code and zoning over the next year or so in a way that's going to encourage that mix of housing and encourage that mix of people coming together to connect and live in our community together.
I don't think this question is an all or nothing question. I agree that a mix of housing creates a more healthy community. But I mean, if you talk to the people who live in the neighborhoods and you look at the survey that the town commissioned, you'll see that our own people, our own residents support moderately sized houses over mansions, and you'll see that they support building townhomes and homes for 55 plus that are patio homes. So I think I would just act on the wishes of the residents and keep an open mind. And I would, when I go and tailor the code and the to accommodate our comprehensive plan that we just adopted, I would work very carefully on those details to allow for developers and others to put things in our community that will benefit all of us, and not just a small fraction of the people who are concerned about things that are new or different.
When I think about development moving forward, I think that we always have to consider that it's going to be meaningful, inclusive, and sustainable. So I'm just going to start with sustainable, specifically in terms of the environment. All of our future development, regardless of what it's coded as, needs to be environmentally responsible. And this comes through green building codes and other zoning updates. We must maximize the efficiency and minimize the impact to the environment. And the only way to protect our community is to elect leaders who have that long-term priority. There are a bunch of different options that could be seen as better for our environment than large homes on large acreage. And that's one of the priorities, I would say, of updating the zoning code. When we talk about what people have right now and versus what people want and need in the future, let's think about the market. We have some diversity of housing. We have some more moderately priced homes. However, those are the ones that are sold first. And as we look at current trends, we're building large homes with very expensive price tags. And we're already starting to see softening of the real estate values. If we're gonna prepare for the future, that's not what we should be building. That doesn't make us strong and prepared for the future. That holds on to where we are right now or who we used to be. Thanks.
Well, I would say that's a little bit of dodging the issue, but it's really not the place of your local government to tell developers what they should be building on their property. We do have codes. We have a very thoughtful, comprehensive plan. There are certain parts of town where multifamily housing is part of the code and allowed and encouraged. And certainly, if the public wants to change zoning in certain areas, at the end of the day, regardless of who's elected, I mean, we are servants of the people. But in the comments that I saw, the public making for the comprehensive plan, that's not the desire, at least right now, of this community. I think it's very important to realize that the market dictates what happens in our town. And I don't agree that I think the builders are building what sells. I mean, if you look right now, it's hard to find a house for sale. There are people bidding over the asking price. So to say that, the market is softening, it may be softening somewhere, but it's not softening in Pittsford. So, thank you.
I think the question was, do you support single-family zoning? We commissioned a survey this year, and overwhelmingly that is what residents support, and that is something that I support. I think that generally protects the value of your home and your property value. So to answer the question, yes, I do.
For those who don't fully understand what the term single-family zoning means, this is the zoning that applies to pretty much every residential neighborhood in Pittsford. And what it basically says is, this is the zoning rule that says your next door neighbor is not allowed to carve up his house and turn it into a boarding house. This applies in all of our residential neighborhoods. And what it does is have the effect of upholding property values for our homeowners. Now, what you need to know is that that's not the only zoning in Pittsford. We have right now, leave the comprehensive plan and future zoning changes aside, we have right now B2 zoning, which provides for multiple family dwellings, both duplexes and more families in one dwelling. Our C3 zoning, existing right now, provides for the same things. We can do what are called planned unit developments, where you can look at a particular area and say, okay, we're going to change the kind of housing we have in there. And in the PUD enabling law, it says specifically that one of the purposes for doing this is to provide a mix and diversity of housing choices. The same thing applies to our existing incentive zoning, where we can sort of horse trade with developers to get a mix of different kind of housing types. Single family home zoning is important. Ms. Evans is on record as calling it a problem. On a radio interview last January, I don't see it as a problem. I see it as supporting the values of the homes that every one of you owns in a residential neighborhood. But if that's all we had in town, that wouldn't work, and it wouldn't be smart, and it wouldn't be right. For the reasons I've described, our zoning provides for a mix of different housing types, and what gets built is what the market calls for, and that's what builders follow.
Candidates only. If you received a $1 million grant to use for the town in any way you wanted, what would you do with it and why? You go first.
I'm tempted to say I'd buy Thursdays and open it up to everybody. Well, actually, what am I going to do with $1 million? $1 million wouldn't quite cut it, but one of the things I would do, because of my interest in preserving open space, would be to put it toward expanding our green print. I talked to you about my involvement with the green print we have. There are many, many people around town, and I'm one of them, who think it's a good idea to extend the green print. We included that question in our community survey that was concluded earlier this year. And an overwhelming number of our residents, a proportion of our residents, said they would like to see that happen. So I can see that as maybe the best and highest use if we suddenly had a $1 million windfall. And there was one place in particular that I think we would need to think very carefully about putting it toward a purchase of property to keep it from development. And that is the land behind 3750 Monroe Avenue. It's right across from Longmeadow, right across from Woodland Drive. Right now, the rules that exist for that parcel would let the owner build as much office space square footage again as he already has. You know how big that building is, going up to Wegmans from the village. It's the building on the right, the town court is in there. It is massive. In my opinion, it would be a complete disaster if anything were built back there. If the town acquired it, we could add that to our nature park and preserve. The properties adjoin, and that would be a wonderful win for the residents in the area, for the residents all over town, to have a nature preserve that big.
Thank you. I think this question perfectly illustrates the difference in leadership style. Is that $1 million would be an amazing win for our community, but I'm not going to sit here and say that I have the answers, because my job is to ask the questions and to bring all of you into that decision-making process. I think we have a number of examples. The nature preserve, the dog park, walkability. We have so many priorities, some of which may seem to be competing and some that don't, but the purpose is that these things should be decided by the community, not by the person in the supervisor chair.
Question for all. We are a community that values public input and participation. If elected, how will you make sure that you represent the broad desires of your constituents, even if you disagree?
That is a great question. Again, I would compliment the town on the fact that this town has evolved over the past 15 years that I've been more involved in town government and county government. But certainly there is more to do. I think the point made by one of our folks on the other side there about expanding interaction with the community in our town opportunities to involve more people in the public hearings. We do have public hearings. We had public hearings in the county legislature. We have public hearings at the village and town board levels. But we also need to understand that people are very busy. It's hard for people to come out to those meetings. They have opinions, but sometimes they just can't make those meetings. So there does need to be other ways for people to interact. I think the community questionnaire that we recently did for the comprehensive plan was a great idea. I mean, we had thousands of participants. It was direct mail to every house in the community, and we got answers from people. That was fantastic. And there are other things that we can do to involve the public. I'd say the last thing, as my time is expiring, when there are big decisions, like when we build a great library in the village, and when we spend money to build out the community center in the village, those decisions were put to public referendum. So when we're talking about spending tens of millions of dollars of taxpayer dollars, rather than just getting people's opinions, sometimes you put it on the ballot and you let the public decide whether or not it's a good idea to spend that money, and I'm a proponent of that. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a great question. The answer is, we listen, and we have a long history of listening to our residents and seeking input. I agree that we could have new ways to do that. But for big, important decisions, we generally will form a steering committee. We had a comprehensive plan committee. We have an active transportation plan committee. We have lots of volunteer opportunities. We are always seeking volunteers, and sometimes, to be quite honest, it's hard to find them. Every time we have a big decision, we're always doing direct mail to every house. We're trying to get people to our meetings any way we can. We have public comments at all town board meetings, and Supervisor Smith has actually made a public comment section for every item on our agenda. He's done a good job. We have open houses, and he has a supervisor Saturday, and we're just trying to reach out to people in new ways. When we put the rec center up for a referendum, we brought coffee out to the Mustang fields to see if people would come and talk to us and look at the plans, to look at them. So we are trying new ways, and we're always open to newer ways. But we are always listening.
Involving the public in important public decisions is a constant and ongoing effort at Pittsford Town Hall, and it has been for the full 6 years I've been sitting in there in the supervisor's office. So, under my leadership, we initiated the televising of town board meetings. Under my leadership, we initiated the public comment. Public comment has been part of Pittsford Town Board meetings for decades. What I did was to say, okay, we're going to have the opportunity before every individual agenda item. We, for our major undertakings, the comprehensive plan, community choice aggregation, the active transportation plan, to state it succinctly, because it's only a minute, we used every single medium available short of television and radio because they're expensive and they're inefficient. We did, for every single public workshop for the comprehensive plan, a direct mailing to every home in Pittsford. Ditto for the active transportation plan. Ditto for the community choice aggregation public meetings. We're doing that in conjunction with two other towns, Brighton and Irondequoit. I just came a couple of weeks ago from a meeting with the other two supervisors about it. We were talking about the public introduction meetings to come as we roll out. And of course they were both laughing at me. They said, well, we don't think we'll have too many people coming unless it's Pittsford where you do, where you do direct mail to everybody. Thought it was sort of a great joke. Well, to me it wasn't a joke. To me it was something to try and get people out so we can learn what you think. That's why we did the community survey. That's why, because it's something that came up at one of our last meetings, we're going to be talking on Tuesday night, I have on the agenda, about how we can begin live streaming our town board meetings on Facebook. No matter what you do, no matter how far you go, there's always going to be something that you could do in addition. So all we can do is keep adding as many means to involve the public as we can.
So it's easy for me to tell you what I would do to ensure that I'm going to be bringing everyone's voices to town leadership, including those who disagree with me, and that's because I'm already doing it, and we are all already doing it. You've heard us tonight allude several times to the fact that we spent our years out knocking on doors and talking to neighbors. Our team has already knocked on over 5,000 doors this year, and we're not knocking on doors and talking to people who agree with us. We're talking to people of all ages, backgrounds, in every neighborhood, of all party affiliations, and we're continuing those conversations from there. I've certainly not, or I certainly have had many residents who disagree with me on certain issues. One example is a resident down on Ithaca Drive who he and I had an hour-long conversation about community choice aggregation, his skepticism of it, and we had a good conversation. I didn't change his mind at the end of it, but we've had several conversations since then as different developments have happened, and I've checked in with him. So that's what it's about, is not talking to the people who agree with you, but going out and talking to everybody and following up with them, because it's one thing to have that one conversation and move on, but it means a lot more to the residents when you are following up with those people who you disagreed with and letting them know what's going on, whether or not it's going in your favor or theirs.
I'm heartened to hear that you guys are going to be talking about live streaming the meetings. Thank you for that. There were people who attended who just pulled out their phones and were able to live stream on Facebook, so it should be a pretty easy adjustment. I think what we need to do is look at how people communicate among themselves. What do you do in your private life? You're on your phone a lot. A lot of us are cutting the cord on our cable. I watch YouTube often. I think playing the meetings on local access is nice, but nobody watches that. So we have to look at how people interact with businesses and how they have become accustomed to communicating with each other. Live streaming is a great place to start. It's super easy. But let's post all of the plans that are submitted to the town volunteer boards on our website. Let's update our website so I can use it with my mobile phone. Let's talk to the people about what they think they want to hear from the town. I like the idea of bringing coffee to the fields, but I don't know if that's the most efficient way to do it. When I communicate with companies that I spend money at, there's phone lines and help tickets and emails and all kinds of different options. And I don't think it's a heavy lift to communicate out. We should be able to stand in our kitchen and stream the meeting on our phone. And if we hear that they're going to talk about a topic that touches our neighborhood, I should be able to get in my car and drive down to the meeting and talk about it. If I have a question about what's on the agenda, I should be able to go to our town website and within less than a minute find that information. I'm pretty good on my computer. I have a hard time finding stuff. And I think it's common sense stuff. Thank you.
So thank you, Kathy, for talking about IT infrastructure. I think that's a very clear place to start. I think what's most important, though, in addition to going to the people, and John's already talked about some of our statistics and our approach to that and how we've talked to everybody, those that look like us and think like us to those who very much don't. I think what's most important is our approach to those listening sessions. What I hear door to door are people telling me that they feel like the answers are defensive or they've been dismissed when they bring something up. There's been a lot of comments about there's a new divisiveness in town. The truth is that dissent and respectful discussion, it's our patriotic duty, and when you knock that many doors and you hear it more than once, more than 5 times, more than I can count, that they feel dismissed or ignored when they reach out to town hall, that's a real reason that people don't participate. A couple of tangibles would be giving people opportunities to come on board. I think there should be a youth advisory panel so that we can engage our young people, future voters, current voters at Nazareth. I think, as I said, there should be a salary advisory board that's reviewing all the salaries to make sure that everybody's getting what they need, that we're part of the solution and not part of the problem. We need to have a stakeholder committee so that we can truly have participatory budgeting. You've heard me say, if you've followed my campaign at all, that budgets are moral documents and they set our priorities, and those priorities should be set by residents. And when we talk about how we're listening to our town survey, when we're listening to residents and that's how action is being taken, I take a little offense to that. For example, the dog park, in terms of that town survey, 36.8% didn't want it and only 24.8% did. I'm not saying yes or no, but I'm saying that's more of a conversation and less of a town hall independent by myself decision. So it's really how we approach people, and you can count on me to represent everyone. I believe in a diversity of ideas, and I will do everything possible to bring you in, to listen to you, and to give you opportunities to engage with your town.
Question for all. For the safety of our children's and pets' health, for the sake of birds, bees, and butterflies, would you consider a board policy on the use of pesticides on town property?
Yes. Our schools have rules that they follow regarding pesticide use, and I think the town should adopt the same rules that the schools use. They're clearly defined, and people are working with them already, and they protect the interests of the people using that property, and I support adopting that. I just, as an aside, because I have more time, my family has one of those blue or organic yard signs, and I want to thank the town for making those available to us. And every time anyone walks by my house, my 5-year-old son tells everyone that our yard is gluten-free. So my whole family is on board, and we're supportive of that. Thank you.
I think this is a perfect example of what I was just saying. Wherever the champion Mary Moore is in this room, she has advocated for pesticide-free town fields for a year without movement, with a lot of feelings of being dismissed and downplayed and the timer going off so that she can't talk anymore. I'm grateful that we have finally changed course and started talking about what can we give our town employees so that they can better meet this objective of reducing and ending pesticide use in our town. I'm glad that we have those signs that are popping up all over. I'm glad, once again, we're having a discussion. So yeah, let's get rid of the pesticides, and let's stop discounting people when they bring a really good idea just because it's not your idea.
So the question was whether we'd consider a policy, and that's a pretty easy lift. Of course, we would consider a policy. Any idea that's coming from residents should certainly be considered. And I agree with what I'm hearing from my colleagues here. So one of the reasons that this conversation has come up in our community is because schools, daycares in our state have to abide by a law that says that they can't spray pesticides on playing fields, playgrounds, areas where our kids are playing. And I don't think it's a heavy lift for our town to adopt a similar policy. And this opens up a bigger conversation that I'd like to get into, at least just briefly, how we might be able to do that without just spending more money. So over the course of the year, actually it was very early in this campaign, I met someone who has a business that really is centered around rebuilding soils, and his business works with school districts who can't use pesticides and gives them another option. And the way they do that is working with food waste and taking food waste from businesses, from residents, and turning that into compost, and then delivering that compost to these school districts to build healthy soils, to fertilize their playing fields without having to use chemicals. And so, again, there's a bigger conversation that could be had here, and we need to expand
into, but we have an ongoing discussion about this, and we have, for the last year. To give you an idea, the town of Pittsford uses about the same amount of pesticide as 2 residential homes in Pittsford. So we are very, very careful in what we do use. We have probably the best parks department in all of the county. They do a wonderful job. Jess Neal does a wonderful job about educating the town on pesticide use. It is something I consider, but I do think that we're very, very thoughtful in our approach.
Thank you. Will we consider a policy? We have one. Our Parks Department constantly evaluates how it has to use pesticides. This is something that's been going on for years, for decades. And the reason it's been going on is because as technology changes and as non-chemical means for controlling insects and pests that simply have to be controlled come online, you're able to reduce your pesticide profile. So, there's a lot of people who have very emotional views about this and do a lot of, internet science research such as it is. We base our decisions on real science. Our Parks Director and our Commissioner of Public Works meet regularly and plan for the year ahead regularly with Cornell University, Cornell Cooperative Extension, and a New York State agency called Integrated Pest Management to see how we can reduce our pesticide use. It's good for everybody and it costs the town less money when we can. We have reduced our use of pesticides so much through the most recent round of study with Cornell and the state that the town maintains 1,300 acres of property. On all 1,300 acres for every year, we use less than 1 bottle of Roundup. For all the non-organic pesticides that we are required to use for safety on our athletic fields and elsewhere, the town of Pittsford uses less each year than just 2 houses in the town of Pittsford that have lawn services. There are nearly 10,000 houses in Pittsford. And this was why, when the proportions were explained this way, we thought, okay, rather than worry about the eyedropper full of pesticides, let's do something about the tidal wave, and that's why we initiated the Organic Lawn Challenge to get people away from pesticides in their own lawns.
I would agree. I would say that, this is one of those low-hanging fruit questions. I don't think anybody is a proponent for putting poison on our playing fields. I think obviously that's a no. But I do also believe that there is technology. There's organic herbicides. There's different technology that's out there. I do believe there was a period of time when the school districts banned pesticides, but they didn't explore other options. And to be frank, the fields looked like crap for about 3 years. It was an embarrassment. Now they've obviously adopted other technology so that we're not putting poison on fields and the fields don't look like crap. That's a win in my opinion, and obviously a smart way to move forward.
Question for all. How will you support the town, village, school collaborative compact?
One of the most important aspects of the management of the town is maintaining the relationship among our town, our village, and our school district. Among the 3 of us, we have a formal leadership function. The village mayor, Bob Corby, Superintendent Mike Pirro of our splendid school system, and I meet regularly for the purpose of sharing information, of seeing how we can cooperate to our mutual interests, seeing how we can help each other out. One of the most obvious results of this kind of cooperation was in the renovation of our athletic fields. The town needed to do something about athletic fields. The school system needed to do something about athletic fields. We discovered that by going in together with a comprehensive program that covered both, that we could share fields and we could save the money for taxpayers that otherwise would have been spent on additional fields. It's difficult to maintain that relationship. We do have some town board members, or at least one who goes off on their own to criticize our school district in the press. When it deserves to be criticized, it should be criticized, and there have been instances where it should be criticized, but we need to work with people and not try to demonize them in the press when we're trying to make headway, and if we're trying to maintain a cooperative relationship that works for all.
The compact is something that is very important to me and very important to everyone at Town Hall. And I just think it's about maintaining mutual respect for each entity and just always keeping lines of communication open. We meet regularly with the school district in the village. We always work collaboratively with them, and we support them in initiatives that they do. And the compact is something that I will always continue to honor.
In my time as a Monroe County legislator, one of the things that I spearheaded and moved forward was our intergovernmental relations, working with partners in government, different town municipalities, different villages, and school districts to do things together, to communicate, to save taxpayers money, to combine services so that, again, it was a cost-saving and service-enhancing opportunities. As far as Pittsford's collaboration compact that was entered into in 2018, to be honest with you, one of the scariest things about this election is the fact that our schools are under attack. And if you think I'm being, if you think I'm exaggerating the point, I would challenge you to ask a group of teachers, ask our school administrators. We have one of the best school districts in the country. And people move here, and our property values are based on the great school system we have. And collaboration is not doing radio talk shows criticizing our schools, throwing our superintendent under the bus. I'm not saying they're perfect. I'm not saying there isn't a time and a place to criticize, but that should be done professionally. And I feel that, frankly, our local government right now does that, and I'm afraid of what might happen if that changes.
Wow, that was scary. I think we should strengthen the compact. We should do more collaboration. We need to strengthen and broaden those relationships. And that compact should be a thread through everything we do as a town. For example, I want my son, who just started kindergarten at a very excellent school that I'm so happy to send him to. And I'm sorry, but I also want to say, I went to Geneseo, and all of my best friends in the world are teachers, and I respect what they do. And I take issue with the characterization that Anthony just presented. But it needs to, that relationship needs to be threaded through everything we do. For example, we have amazingly smart kids. We have great schools. We have empty storefronts and commercial space. We have 2 colleges in town. We have a beautiful village. There is no reason why our town couldn't have a signature Pittsford entrepreneurship program where our kids learn how to work in a modern economy for a tech company and come up with ideas where they can stay in town without moving away, and they can build a business here, and they can increase our commercial tax base. And that unifies all of the issues that are concerning us here today. We need to talk to people. We need to get more ideas. I'm not a career politician. I've worked for tech companies for 20 years, and I'm telling you that there are ideas out there that we're not exploring and we're not taking advantage of. And we have leaders of industry who live in our town. They would be amazing mentors for these kids. We need to tap into that resource. Thank you.
So like many people in the room, I would assume our family, a big part of why our family moved to Pittsford was for the schools. And it wasn't that we moved here for the first time. My wife went through the Pittsford schools. Her mom worked in the Pittsford schools, just recently retired, worked in the schools for 20 years. And her mom, my wife's grandmother, also worked in the school. So our school district is ingrained in our family. And while we have not had a real deep look at the Pittsford schools, our kids are still below school age, 2 and 3. What we've heard today is absolutely correct on both sides of the stage. Pittsford has great collaboration with our schools. There is always more that we can be doing. I guess the point that I would end on is that looking at and discussing how we can be doing better is not the same as criticizing the tech, and we need to be open to being critical of ourselves, I guess, and that's not, it's not an attack, it's, and as Bill mentioned earlier, a look at continuous improvement, and how we can be better serving our neighbors and our residents.
My husband and I moved here for the schools, period. We love the village, we love the historic preservation, but we moved here for the schools for our 3 children. I'm a teacher. An elementary school teacher is how I started my career, and truthfully, the mantra that I've lived with is work hard and be nice to people. Strengthening collaboration between our village, town, and schools is essential. No one would disagree with that. We need to work together to strengthen a compact. But a compact is about collaboration, and when you talk about silencing someone because they disagree with you, that is the most anti-American thing I can imagine. And I don't like the way that we're talking to each other or the words that we're using on the stage. You can't say, don't question, and then use words like demonizing. This is not productive civil conversation, and that is not how we move forward together. Strong communities are not perfect communities. Strong communities are those that recognize future needs and work together. They disagree and they come up with consensus that moves forward together. That's what's most important right now.
Another question for everyone, and this question reflects on a previous topic, but with a twist. So many businesses in the village close. How will you support small business to be able to continue doing well and be able to stay?
Well, I will take this back to, I think a different topic than what you were referring to, but bring this back to active transportation and better connecting our neighborhoods with our village. The way you get better traffic through our village, through our businesses, is by connecting more people with the village. And when you hear people talk about how they don't go into the village because of parking issues, that's a whole nother conversation. But we don't all need to be parking in the village to be accessing it. So it starts with better connecting our neighborhoods with our village. It also goes towards how we're designing and developing moving forward, looking at people-centric development, looking at how we can be moving our storefronts, building our storefronts in a way that's going to be inviting people in a way that is going to be connecting neighbors with the stores that they've not been into before, and drawing people to the different areas in our village. And we're not just talking about our village, we also have to pay attention to our commercial district on Monroe Avenue, because that's not could do with more support and more, I guess, advertising, more promotion is the word I'm looking for from our town and from our community.
I think it would help if we increased foot traffic in the village. And I know that Mayor Corby is aware, is very concerned about that also. But if I'm walking by a cute boutique, I'm gonna stop in. If I'm driving by, I'll think, oh, that's a cute boutique, and I'll keep driving. And I think not everybody is comfortable driving in our on our residential streets and in our village these days, because we have a problem with cars driving super fast and running stoplights and running stop signs. And it's not a one-size-fits-all solution to this. Each of our neighborhoods is just a little bit different. They're all unique. And the things that slow traffic down are different in each context. But in the context of the village, I would support putting some sort of fountain in the middle of the four corners, or something environmental to trigger people to slow down. Or let's have a conversation about which parts of the village could be pedestrian only versus a throughfare. And the supervisor will probably shoot holes in those ideas, but I guess my point is, we need to start having a conversation about this. We need to draw upon the resources that we have within our community. We have people in our community who are engineers and who are urban planners and creative people. And if we all got together and we had productive conversations where we understand that we can disagree with each other in an honest and forthright way, then I think that we would get where we needed to be.
I think we start by asking the businesses. Chamber, thank you for everything that you do for bringing everybody together. As a business owner who used to have a brick and mortar store in the village, I would love to see a stronger proponent for those business owners that are specifically village business owners. Those are voices that I feel are often underrepresented and should have a great say in how we're doing our food truck rodeo and other such things. So I think we start by asking, we ask the businesses and we bring them in. We need to finish that active transportation plan and come up with ways to use that grant that the village has received but can't pay for. We have to start partnering with the village. That is our role. As town residents, we benefit from the village. We need to start supporting them in every way we can. So shop local, everyone. I think that's another thing I would say to you. We need to have a way to bring our college students. Why are we not bringing NAS and St. John Fisher? We need a way to bring those students into the conversation and into our village. We need to make better programming for the kids that are wandering about. Andrew and I, we have 3 now, tweens. They're all 11, 12, 13, and they want to walk to the village. They want to go there, but you can only go to Pontello's in the library so many times. We need to find ways to bring them into the community center to increase the programming. We need to give them a lot of other options because foot traffic does lead to consumerism.
I guess I'll start, as a business person in the community, and let me start by saying, those are all good ideas. I can't say that any one of them is not. I mean, combined, I think those would make positive impacts on the village. Start with the fact that we are, just for clarity, running for supervisor and town board in the town of Pittsford, and we have absolutely no jurisdiction over what happens in the village itself. So I think it's important to note that. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean we sit idly by and don't support. As a business person, the town of Pittsford has done a great job of lending its building inspector to the village, providing support through the rec departments, providing support through the parks department, the work that we do in the library and the community center, as I mentioned. There are things that we do together, the festivals that the town does are in the village. But to be frank, and the town of Pittsford has already started doing it, the village needs to do a better job with their approval process and the way they handle new businesses coming to town. I mean, you want to talk about, I shouldn't say it, but it's not very welcoming to business. And I do hope that as they approve the new comprehensive plan and they move forward with these new applications. I hope they do a better job evaluating them and frankly being more fair. And by fair, I don't mean approving everything, but by fair, I mean a better process that's more upfront and honest with small business people that are coming in rather than dragging them through a process only to smack them at the end. So if this were the minutes, I would strike that last comment, but
I think, Bill, in Town Hall, we've done a pretty good job of streamlining the permitting process for business, for people looking to do business here. I think we should continue to look at that. Another great thing that we have done in the last year or two is Matt O'Connor, who's on the town council with me now, has served as a liaison to the chamber, which has been helpful for us so that we can get input from the chamber all the time and know what they're thinking, and he takes that feedback back to us. And I'd like to, strengthen that relationship moving forward.
It's not nearly enough time. Ms. Evans says we need to make a provision for students from the colleges to come into the village. What do you think the East Avenue sidewalk is there for? Why do you think it was put in, among other reasons? Who do you think the town partnered with in planning the entire projects in John Fisher College and Nazareth College? That's one example of the things we do to help increase customers coming in to our village. Businesses go where there are two things: where there's money to be spent, and where there are customers, where there are the people. One of the things we can do as a town, because as my colleagues here have said, we have no jurisdiction whatsoever over any planning decisions or business applications within the village of Pittsford. It is an independent government. But what we can do is to create conditions conducive to people wanting to come to Pittsford and to Pittsford being a destination. Now, Pittsford is already a place. It's one of those places where people want to move to, not away from. That's because of our schools, and that's because of the way we have looked over the town, and our predecessors in office have looked over the town for decades. That's one thing we can do. How can we enhance that? I'm just going to, again, a minute's not enough time. I will point out two things that have been priorities for the Pittsford town government for decades and that remain a priority in my administration. One is historic preservation. I'm a strong proponent of historic preservation. We try to encourage it at every opportunity. Our comprehensive plan calls for stepping it up, and it is known that towns, municipalities that do it and succeed in doing it, as we have, see more people wanting to come in. Even for those who don't live here, it's much more of a destination. And the other is the preservation of open space. It creates an ambiance and it preserves the balance between urban and rural and suburban that makes a place exist on a human scale. And when you have a human scale in your village and in the surrounding countryside that's open, and between suburban and rural and urban, you have a place that people want to come and visit. And then finally, the promotion we do for events on our canal, which brings people right into the heart of our village.
Okay, at this point in time, if I look at the time, I look at many questions left, there is not enough time. I don't believe there is enough time to do a full, both teams, even one more question. We're supposed to stop, I believe, at 8:50, if I'm right, for closing remarks, and it is 8:49 now. So what I would suggest is we stop the questions now and we go to the closing remarks. And the closing remarks, if I've got this right, it's 3 minutes total each side. And it's for each team to decide how they want to divvy up those 3 minutes. So we will start with, Kendra. My memory serves me correct, because this team opened up.
I'll actually start this for our team, and we'll move around the table. So tonight you heard a real distinction in the skills and experience that the six of us are bringing to the table. a team that's operated within this political realm for decades versus individuals who bring decades of experience as an educator, small business owner, and program manager, as a lawyer working in the corporate world, and as an engineer and operations manager. And what I'd like to close with is the point that business as usual does not necessarily lead to future success. Pittsford's not operating in a bubble, and the world around us is changing, and we need leaders who recognize those changes and can adapt to them and take advantage of them rather than wait and react. That might seem like some opaque rhetoric, so let me give you a really tangible example from our community. Kodak, as a company, they had a strong company until they didn't. The world around them changed and they didn't adapt with it. And that's what I'm talking about here. You can count on me to put in the work required to solve the problems facing our town. As I said earlier in the evening, my background as an engineer allows me to go to where the work gets done, to understand the systems at play, and develop solutions that improve the social, economic, and environmental health of our community. And that's why I'm humbly asking for your vote on November 5th.
My training as a lawyer and my experience reviewing contracts, writing policies, and working with people who disagree with me will be an asset to the board and to our community. Practical, I do the work. And for me, integrity and my professional reputation are extremely important. And just to reiterate what I said earlier, our people in Pittsford are our greatest asset, and it's unique to us. We have the greatest people, just so smart and accomplished. And I'm committed to making sure that each of us has the opportunity for meaningful participation in our decision-making processes. And I'm committed to representing Pittsford, all of us.
Again, thank you everyone for being here tonight. And I just, since when is good enough for Pittsford residents? We are leaders in business, medicine, education, and other fields. We prioritize service to others, and we pride ourselves on our nationally ranked schools, our athletic championships, and other examples of excellence. We're a community of hard workers, of achievers, and we don't rest on our laurels, and we deserve a town government that doesn't do that as well. I sincerely thank my opponents for their years in government, but believe it's time for these career politicians to pass the baton to us, people with experience in our own respective fields who have a bias towards action and listening. For the first time in 6 years, voters have a choice for supervisor, and nothing makes local government more responsive than a contested election. It's great that those sidewalks are just getting done, but think about how far we could go. When I hear residents talking about their roads being paved or the park finally happening, it's great, but we can do more. We shouldn't have to wait for a contested election for people to listen and take action. So that's why I think we're the right choice for our community at this time. Thank you.
I'd just like to take a quick second to thank again the Chamber, thank all of you for coming out and spending your time with us. I think you'll know that these two faces are not the faces of career politicians. We have a great mother and a working mother, and I am a small business owner, and trust me, this is not my full-time job in politics. I do it because I love our community, as does Kate. I'd like to turn this over to our great supervisor and our team leader, Bill Smith.
Yes, as with my colleagues, I'm a career lawyer, not a career politician. This is the first full-time public service job that I've ever held. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Thanks to the Pittsford Chamber of Commerce for its splendid organization of event. Thank you, Liz Conor, for doing this so ably. And thank our splendid Pittsford School District for making this room available to us tonight. Well, whether or not you want Supervisor Smith to continue in office, that's up to you. I hope you do, but if you do, then you need to know that this year it quite literally takes 3 votes, not 1. I can only continue to deliver the results and provide the leadership I've been able to deliver for the past 6 years if my running mates, my team, Kate and Anthony, are elected with me. If we lose just 1 seat, I would be supervisor in name only, a figurehead with nearly no real authority. If you share my vision and our vision of continual improvement for our community, of providing the best to our residents in services and amenities, of protecting our taxpayers, of responsiveness to the needs of residents, of keeping our neighborhoods strong, please support our team, Kate, Anthony, and me. We share our residents' vision for this community we live in. Now tonight, we've discussed improvements. We've discussed services and infrastructure. We've discussed the careful planning for the future that I consider so important to the ongoing success of our community and other nuts and bolts of town government. But beyond every one of those things, at the foundation are our residents. You make this community what it is. People of all backgrounds, all walks of life, of all faiths and none, of ancestry from countries around the world, and substantially united in many basic shared values about the kind of community we want to live in, about expectations for yourselves and your neighbors, about the fundamentals of day-to-day life, values like courtesy toward others, engagement with neighbors, upkeep of your home, noise in the neighborhood, education, and all of the other things that together make for good relations among neighbors. A shared understanding when it comes to those close-to-home circumstances in which you want your families to live their lives day to day. I, the members of the administration I lead, and my running mates are proud of our residents, and we are loyal to these values. Kate and Anthony and I will bring to bear a vision for continual improvement for our residents that keeps faith with those values. We're in sync with the broad consensus of the residents of Pittsford, and will continue to fulfill our duties in office in accordance with your vision, because we stand for Pittsford. We stand for you.
That was an excellent forum, productive and constructive. Everybody played by the rules, and we learned a lot. So thank you all. Thank you, Liz. Candidates for perhaps meet you out in the lobby afterwards. Otherwise, we have to clear the auditorium. Just a reminder to please support the Rotary, the Pittsford Rotary. This is their fundraiser, and it'll be a good dinner after you have Election Day dinner